Welcome back, everybody. Today's deep dive is taking us into the world of AI and ophthalmology.
Yeah, we're talking about some pretty amazing stuff.
And a pretty big problem, myopia.
Right, nearsightedness. And it's a global issue. I mean, projections show it could affect something like half the world's population by 2050.
Wow, half the planet needing glasses. That's a lot of people. But it's more than just needing glasses, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. If you have severe myopia, it can lead to way more serious complications, like retinal detachment, even macular degeneration.
So not just blurry vision then. And one of the keys to understanding all of this, the progression, the potential complications, is understanding the shape of the eye, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, so how do doctors normally get that kind of detailed view of the eye shape?
Well, the gold standard is MRI.
Makes sense. Gives you those incredible 3D images.
Right, but MRI machines, well, they're not exactly sitting in every eye doctor's office.
Yeah, those are expensive and not exactly readily available everywhere.
Exactly.
So what's the alternative?
Well, that's where things get really interesting. Researchers have been working on this AI framework called Fundus2Globes.
Fundus2Globe, okay.
And the really cool thing about this is it can generate a 3D model of an eye from a simple color fundus photograph.
Hold on, from a regular eye photo, the kind most eye doctors already take.
Yep, plus a few basic measurements.
Okay, that seems like a pretty big jump. What kind of measurements are we talking about here?
Things like axial length, which is basically the length of your eye from front to back.
Okay.
And then also something called spherical equivalent, which basically tells you about the overall focusing power of the eye.
So longer axial length generally means more nearsighted.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the spherical equivalent, that helps determine how well your eye can focus light on the retina.
Got it. So Fundus2Globe takes this easily obtained information and it uses it to construct this really detailed 3D model.
Exactly.
But how accurate is it? Can it really capture the nuances of an eye, especially in those more complex cases?
Well, the researchers, they did a lot of testing. They compared those AI-generated models to the actual MRI scans. And what they found was pretty impressive. The AI was really accurate. It could even replicate specific abnormalities that you find in severe cases of myopia, like posterior staphyloma.
Posterior staphyloma. Refresh my memory. What exactly is that again?
It's basically an abnormal bulging at the back of the eye, something that you see a lot in those severe myopia cases.
Right, right.
And what's impressive is that Fundus2Globe, it was able to actually recreate those bulges in the 3D models. And it wasn't just that, it accurately captured other really subtle shape variations too. And those can be, really crucial for understanding how myopia progresses and the potential complications.
So this bulging, that could be like a red flag, a warning sign for more serious issues later on, right?
Exactly, yeah. And being able to spot that early on just from a simple photo, that could be huge, especially when it comes to preventative treatment.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so how did the researchers actually measure the AI's accuracy? They weren't just eyeballing it, were they?
No, they used a few different metrics.
Okay.
One of the key ones was something called the chamfer distance.
Chamfer distance. Okay, I'm not familiar with that.
It's basically a way of calculating how different two shapes are.
Okay.
So the smaller the distance, the closer the AI model matched the real eye shape, the one from the MRI.
Gotcha.
And they found those chamfer distances, they were consistently small, so that indicates a high degree of accuracy. They also looked at another measure called the Q value, which tells you how much the eye deviates from a perfect sphere.
Okay.
Again, Fundus2Globe, it consistently got it right, matching those Q values of the real eyes, even across different types of staphyloma.
So we're seeing some pretty impressive results when it comes to accuracy here.
Yeah, it's really promising.
But did they actually, visually compare the AI models to the real eyes?
Oh yeah, absolutely. They put those AI-generated models side by side with the MRI-based 3D models, and the similarities were really striking, even to the naked eye.
Wow, that's incredible.
It's pretty amazing what AI can do.
So to build an AI like this, one that can, construct a 3D model just from a photo and a couple measurements, you need a massive amount of data to train it, right?
Right.
Where did they even get all this data from?
Yeah, training AI, it requires these huge data sets. They use data from the Zhongshan Ophthalmic Center, Breen Holden Vision Institute, Guangzhou High Myopia Cohort Study.
That's a mouthful.
It is.
But it sounds pretty comprehensive. What exactly did they gather? What kind of information?
So this cohort study, it involved people with high myopia.
Okay.
And they collected, all sorts of data, everything from basic demographics, like age, gender, things like that, but also visual acuity, those key measurements we talked about, like axial length. And of course, they had both MRI scans and those color fundus photographs for each participant.
So they essentially fed all this information to the AI, and Fundus2Globe learned to recognize the patterns, the connections between that 2D photo, those basic measurements, and the 3D structure of the eye.
Exactly. By analyzing all of that data, the AI was able to make these, really incredible predictions about the eye shape from that limited information.
Okay, I get that. But let's take a step back for a second and talk about why this is such a big deal. I mean, you mentioned earlier this could be a game changer for myopia management.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
What are some of those practical implications?
Well, early detection is a big one. Imagine being able to identify individuals who are at risk of developing those serious complications from myopia much earlier than we can now, just from a simple photo.
And earlier detection, that means earlier intervention, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Potentially stopping those complications before they even happen.
Right, and that leads us to that second major implication, personalized treatment. You see, these 3D models, they could allow doctors to tailor treatment plans to an individual's unique eye shape and how their myopia is progressing.
So we're moving away from that one-size-fits-all approach, right?
Exactly.
And going to something that's designed specifically for your eye.
Yeah, and this could lead to better outcomes, potentially even prevent vision loss in the long run.
That's pretty remarkable.
It's a great example of how AI can be used to improve healthcare.
This isn't just some, cool tech demo, right? This is about potentially improving people's lives.
Absolutely. But it's important to note that the researchers also pointed out some limitations, some areas for future research.
Well, no technology is perfect, right? Every innovation innovation, comes with its limitations. What are some of the areas where Fundus2Globe could, be improved or further explored?
Well, one area they highlighted was incorporating data from OCT,
OCT, okay.
optical coherence tomography,
Right, right.
which provide these highly detailed cross-sectional images of the retina.
Okay, so even more detailed images, adding another layer of information to those 3D models.
Right.
What could that actually achieve?
Well, by combining that OCT data with those color photos and those measurements we talked about, we might be able to get even more accurate and even more detailed 3D models. It's all about refining the technology, pushing its potential even further.
Okay, this is all fascinating. I'm hooked. But I gotta admit, I am a little curious about, the nitty-gritty here. How does this AI actually work? How do you even begin to teach a computer to understand something as complex as the human eye?
Yeah, that's a good question.
It's amazing to me.
That's where we delve into the world of diffusion models.
Diffusion models. Okay, I like the sound of that. Tell me more.
Okay, so imagine you have a perfectly clear picture and you start adding noise, like pixel by pixel, until it becomes this blurry mess. A diffusion model, it basically learns to do the reverse. It starts with that blurry mess and it gradually removes that noise to reconstruct the original image.
So it's like those crime shows where they take, a blurry photo and they enhance it, to identify the bad guy?
Exactly. But instead of a photo, this AI is reconstructing a 3D model of an eye.
Okay.
It starts with this, this random noisy representation of the eye, and then it uses information from that color photo and those measurements to guide that denoising process, slowly refining that model until it matches the real shape of the eye.
Okay, I think I'm following you. So it takes this noisy blob, and step by step it cleans it up using what it's learned from the training data.
Right.
But how does it actually use the color photo and those measurements to guide that process?
Well, first, that color photo, it gets processed using what's called a foundation model.
A foundation model. Okay, another new term.
I know. We got a lot of jargon here.
Yeah.
Think of it as a pre-trained AI that already has a pretty good understanding of visual information, specifically in the context of eye health. So this foundation model extracts those key features from the color photo and it encodes them into this kind of compact representation.
So it's translating the photo into a language the diffusion model can understand.
Precisely. And then those measurements, like the axial lengths and the spiritual equivalent, they also get converted into a format that AI can work with.
Okay.
This involves a technique called label distribution learning, which essentially smooths out any inconsistencies in those measurements.
Makes it easier for the AI to process.
Exactly.
Got it. So we have the photo all summarized, those measurements all prepped. What happens next?
All of that information, the photo features, the process measurements, even whether it's a right eye or a left eye, all of that gets fed into that diffusion model. And that guides the model as it goes through each of those denoising steps, ultimately creating that 3D eye that accurately reflects that individual's, eye characteristics.
That's incredible. But there was this term earlier that really caught my attention, counterfactual generation.
Ah, yes.
It sounds a little mind-bending. Can you explain what that means? Why is it so important here?
Yeah, so counterfactual generation, it's essentially the ability to create what-if scenarios.
Like, what if this eye had a different axial length, or the focusing power was different?
Exactly. The researchers wanted to see if Fundus2Globe could not only replicate existing eyes, but also generate 3D models of eyes with different parameters, essentially eyes that don't even exist yet.
So they were testing if the AI could imagine and build a hypothetical eye. Why is that important?
Well, think about the implications for, like, personalized medicine.
Okay, yeah.
Being able to simulate how an eye might change under different conditions, that opens up some really amazing possibilities.
It's like having a simulator for eye health, right?
Exactly.
You could potentially predict future problems, or see how an eye might respond to different treatments.
Exactly. And that's where the real power of this technology lies. It's not just about understanding the present, it's about using that understanding to potentially shape the future of eye health.
This is also fascinating. I feel like we've covered a lot of ground already. We went from this global challenge of myopia to these incredible capabilities of this new AI, and then to the mind-blowing possibilities of this counterfactual generation. But I feel like we're just scratching the surface. There's so much more to explore, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we haven't even talked about how they tested this AI on a completely separate data set.
Right, to see if it could accurately analyze eyes it had never even encountered before?
Exactly.
Tell me more about that.
They used a data set called PALM.
PALM, what's that stand for?
It stands for Open Fundus Photograph Dataset with pathologic myopia recognition and anatomical structure annotation.
Catchy.
Yeah.
So what's special about this particular data set?
Well, it's a huge collection of fundus images, over 1,200, and each one is labeled indicating whether or not that eye has signs of pathological myopia.
So they basically gave Fundus2Globe this whole bunch of new eye photos and said, okay, tell me which ones have pathological myopia.
Exactly, but here's the thing. They only gave the AI the photos. No axial length, their spherical equivalent, none of those extra measurements it was trained on.
Wow, okay, so a real-world test then, like if a clinic didn't have those measurements on hand.
Precisely. They wanted to see if Fundus2Globe could apply its knowledge to those new situations.
Okay, and how'd it do?
It did amazingly well. Even without that extra data, the AI was able to tell the difference between eyes with and without pathological myopia based on those subtle shape differences.
That's really impressive. So it can adapt,
Yeah,
perform even when faced with new challenges.
exactly. And that's a crucial feature for any AI, right? Especially one that's going to be used in a real-world healthcare setting.
Right. Let's go back to counterfactual generation for a moment. I'm still wrapping my head around those possibilities for personalized treatment.
Sure.
Okay, let's say you have a patient with progressive myopia,
Okay.
meaning their nearsightedness is getting worse over time.
Right.
Right now, doctors basically, use their best judgment and kind of general guidelines to recommend treatments like special contact lenses or even surgery, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And then imagine those treatments aren't equally effective for everyone.
Right. But imagine if, using Fundus2Globe, doctors could create a virtual 3D model of that patient's eye and then simulate how it would respond to those different treatments.
So they could basically preview different treatment options, see which one is most likely to be the most effective for that specific patient.
Yeah, it's like having a sneak peek into the future of that eye.
That's pretty remarkable. It takes personalized medicine to a whole new level. But simulating those changes is one thing. Actually making them happen in the real world, that's another.
Right, that's where things get really interesting.
Yeah.
And where we start to bump up against some really fascinating questions.
Like what?
Well, I mean, if we can simulate how an eye might change based on different parameters, and if we eventually develop the technology to actually alter those parameters, I mean, where do we draw the line?
Whoa, that's a big question. Are we talking like designer eyes someday?
It's not as far-fetched as it might sound. I mean, we're already seeing gene editing technologies being explored for other health conditions.
It's definitely something to think about. I mean, as this technology advances, we really need to have these conversations about the ethical implications, right?
Absolutely. These aren't decisions to be made lightly. But the fact that we're even having these conversations, it just shows how quickly this technology is advancing, how important it is to consider its potential impact.
It's bigger than just, building a 3D model.
Right, yeah.
It's about the future of healthcare and how we use technology responsibly.
Exactly. But even with all these, potential implications, we need to remember that Fundus2Globe is still in its early stages.
Right, back to the present. What are some of the limitations that still need to be addressed?
Well, one thing they mentioned is that the training data is mainly focused on individuals with high myopia. So we don't know yet how well the AI will actually perform on people with, lower levels of myopia or even other eye conditions.
So more data is needed, more diversity, as is often the case with AI.
Exactly. The researchers acknowledge that, expanding their data set to include a broader range of eye conditions, demographics, that's really crucial. And of course, they're still working on incorporating that OCT data we talked about earlier.
Okay, so more work to be done, but the potential here is huge. We've talked about the technical side of this AI, but I'm curious about the human side. What are the researchers hoping to achieve with this technology, ultimately?
They see Fundus2Globe as a gateway to precision ophthalmology.
Precision ophthalmology, I like the sound of that. But what does it actually mean in practice?
Well, it's about moving away from that one-size-fits-all approach and toward personalized care that's tailored to each individual's unique needs.
Okay. So Fundus2Globe could be a tool to help doctors make better decisions about diagnoses, treatments, even prevention.
Exactly. They envision a future where this technology is readily available, helping to improve eye health outcomes for people all over the world.
That's an inspiring goal. So they're thinking big picture, global impact. What are the researchers most excited about, personally?
One thing that really stood out to them was the ability to, generate those counterfactual scenarios.
Those what-if simulations, yeah.
Exactly.
It's easy to see why that would be exciting.
Right. They believe that this capability could really revolutionize how we understand myopia progression and lead to completely new treatment approaches.
Like opening up this whole new world of possibilities. And it all started with a simple idea, right? What if we could build a 3D model of an eye from a regular photo?
Exactly. It highlights the power of human ingenuity, what we can achieve when we combine that with cutting-edge AI.
We've covered a lot, but I feel like we could keep going. What are some of the key takeaways, for our listener?
Well, I think the first one is just the sheer scale of the myopia problem, globally. It's something to really consider. It's not just a minor inconvenience.
Right.
It's a serious public health issue.
We can't underestimate the impact of this condition.
Yeah, and second, this AI, Fundus2Globe, is remarkably accurate
Yeah.
at creating those 3D eye models from just those simple photographs. And it's not just about, replicating existing eyes. It's about being able to simulate those potential changes,
Correct.
which opens up some exciting possibilities for treatment and prevention.
Personalized medicine powered by AI, it's an exciting time. What's another key takeaway for our listener?
I think finally, and maybe most importantly, this technology, it's just the beginning.
Yeah.
We're only just starting to see what AI can do in healthcare. There are bound to be many more groundbreaking discoveries in the years to come.
I'm feeling both inspired and a little mind blown, but I'm sure our listener is wondering, what does this all mean for me?
That's a great question. This technology, it's not just about treating existing conditions, it's about prevention.
So even if you don't currently have myopia, this research is still relevant.
Absolutely. Imagine a future where, during your routine eye exam, your doctor uses AI to not only assess your current eye health, but also predict your risk of developing myopia or other conditions in the future.
So like a personalized early warning system for your eyes.
Exactly. And one of the most remarkable aspects of this is that it doesn't require these, expensive or complex imaging techniques.
Right.
A simple color fundus photo, which is already routine in many eye exams, could be enough to, generate those 3D models and provide really valuable insights into your future eye health.
Okay, so no need to run out and get an MRI just yet, but this research really, really underscores the importance of those regular eye exams.
Exactly. It's all about being proactive, taking control of your eye health.
This has been an incredible deep dive. I really appreciate you walking us through all of this. Before we wrap up, I have one final question.
Okay.
We've talked about the potential benefits, but what about the risks? Are there any downsides, potential dangers that we should be aware of?
Yeah, that's an important question, and it's something the researchers addressed in their paper. Any new technology, especially one as powerful as AI, it comes with potential risks.
Like what? What kind of risks are we talking about?
Well, one concern is the potential for bias in the AI algorithms.
Okay.
If the training data isn't diverse enough, The AI might not perform accurately for certain populations.
So we need to make sure that the AI is trained on data that represents, the full spectrum of human diversity.
Precisely. Otherwise, we risk creating a system that inadvertently perpetuates existing healthcare inequalities.
That's a really important point. What other risks should we be thinking about?
Another concern is data privacy and security. These AI models, they need access to sensitive personal information, medical records, images.
So we need to make sure that this data is handled responsibly, protected from unauthorized access or misuse.
Absolutely. Data breaches and privacy violations, they're always a concern in healthcare. And AI systems just require even more vigilance in that regard.
You're right. These are not minor concerns. We really need to have these open and honest conversations about the potential risks associated with AI in healthcare, even as we celebrate all these incredible possibilities.
I completely agree. It's about finding that right balance between innovation and responsibility.
Well said. I think that's a perfect note to end on. Yeah, it's exciting to think about all the possibilities, but we also need to, proceed thoughtfully, make sure we're addressing those potential concerns.
Absolutely, yeah. It's about finding that balance, right? Embracing that potential of AI, but also safeguarding against the potential pitfalls.
Well said. This has been a fascinating deep dive. I feel like I've learned so much. Before we wrap up, I want to revisit something you mentioned earlier about, the researchers' vision for the future of this technology. They called it a gateway to precision ophthalmology.
Yes, and I think that phrase really captures what Fundus2Globe represents. It's not just, a cool new gadget. It's potentially a whole new way of approaching eye health.
Okay, paint me a picture. What might that future actually look like?
Imagine going in for your regular eye exam, and your doctor uses AI to generate this really detailed 3D model of your eye, all from a quick photo. And this model wouldn't just show, the current state of your eye, but it could actually simulate how your eye might change over time, based on your individual risk factors and potential treatments.
So it's like a personalized roadmap for your eye health.
Exactly, yeah. And with that roadmap, doctors could make much more informed decisions about prevention, early intervention, personalized treatment plans.
That sounds pretty futuristic, but in a good way. What else might be possible in this world of precision ophthalmology?
Well, think about the potential for telemedicine.
Okay.
With AI-powered tools like Fundus2Globe, eye care could become a lot more accessible to people in, remote areas, underserved areas.
Oh, so you wouldn't necessarily need to see a specialist in person to get quality eye care. That could be life-changing for so many people.
Absolutely, yeah. And it could also lead to, more efficient use of healthcare resources, since AI could help identify those who really need urgent attention.
The implications are huge, but as with any new technology, there are always challenges. What are some of the hurdles that need to be overcome before we see this vision of precision ophthalmology actually become a reality?
Well, data is a big one.
Okay.
As we've discussed, AI models, they need those massive amounts of data to be trained effectively. And in healthcare, that data needs to be diverse, representative, and of high quality.
So it's not just about quantity, it's about quality too.
Right.
And making sure that the data reflects, the diversity of the population.
Exactly. And another challenge is, regulatory approval.
Right.
AI tools used in healthcare, they have to go through these rigorous tests to make sure that they're safe, that they're effective.
So there are safeguards in place to protect patients. Which makes sense.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember that, AI in healthcare, it's not a quick fix. It's a long-term commitment to research, to development, and to responsible implementation.
Well said. I'm excited about all the possibilities, but I'm also aware of the need for careful consideration as we move forward.
I agree. It's an exciting time to be working in this field, and I'm really eager to see what the future holds for AI in ophthalmology.
Me too. I have a feeling we'll be talking about this a lot more in the years to come, but for now, this has been an incredible deep dive. I want to thank you for sharing your expertise with us.
It's been my pleasure. I always enjoy these conversations. I hope our listeners out there have found it informative and engaging.
I'm sure they have. And for our listener out there, we want to leave you with this final thought. This technology, it's still in its early stages, but it holds incredible potential to change the way we approach eye health. Stay curious, keep asking questions, and be an advocate for your own well-being. The future is bright. And with AI as a tool, we can work towards making it even brighter.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks again for joining us on this deep dive into the world of AI and eye health. Until next time.